All right. We're trying this again. Let me know if anyone can see or hear me. It's working. Patrick, hero. What about the guitar? Can anyone see this? Oh, okay. It's working. Amazing. Okay. Thanks, guys. I appreciate I appreciate you being patient. I don't know what happened earlier. I tried to start it and I thought we were live and we were not. Um Can you hear this can you hear this mic? All right. If the if the guitar is not coming through super clear, then we'll find another way. All right, awesome. Well, hey, even if we can't get the guitar totally clear, if the mic is working here, then we'll just talk here and talk through anything you guys want to talk about. Does anyone have a question or a thought? You just like hanging out on Friday? Want to talk guitars or gear or coffee or um um one person had asked about remote guitar work and session from home. How do you go about doing that? And well, before I dive into that, maybe we should just make sure that guitars. All right, so it sounds like Brady. Thank you, man. Sounds like guitar might be picking up from your mic. Let's see here. Thanks, Brian. Thanks, Barbara. Thanks, everyone. Another thought I had, I might just plug into this amp right behind me. Someone tell me if this sounds any clearer. Does that sound any clearer on the electric? Thanks, Brian. This is a first try here, so we're gonna figure this out. How'd you land on the Duesenberg? Someone says. Thanks, Brady, for the question. So when we were touring with Chris Tomlin, for those of you that don't know me, my name is Daniel. I don't know how you got here, but I played on the road with Chris Tomlin for my whole life as my job. I started when I was 18, and we toured for the better part of almost 25 years on the road. Hey Ethan, what's up? Um, and yeah, so in the band, for years we would fly, and I would play random or not random. I could only fly a couple of guitars out for fly dates, so that was always maybe like a Les Paul or a Telly for many many years, and then at some point we got our hands on a Duesenberg guitar in the middle of a recording. JD Myers, what's up? Hello. Thanks for saying hi, guys. This is so fun. Um, the Yeah, and so we were in the studio working on a record that of Chris's, and it was the recording that had Good Father on. It was that series of songs, or that era of songs. And we had this Fullerton Elite. It was the big blue Duesenberg guitar, um, that we used in the studio, and that we ended up taking on the road. And I used it a bunch on the road, and I used it for a bunch of our recordings, and it just fell in love with that guitar and just how well they play and how well it was set up, and it just sounded great, and the pickups were nice, and everything just worked. It's just like, oh, this is just like EQ'd really well, and just love the way it felt. Um, so yeah, so we fell in love with that one, and then I wanted one for these days. Uh, Wanted another one. Um, the other one is out with Chris and the band. I think Casey Moore. If you guys know Casey, he's awesome, lovely dude, brother of mine. Um, he's out on the road with Chris right now, handling guitar duties, and I think he's playing that guitar some too. So he and Chris and me, we've kind of tossed it around between each other over the years. But yeah, found this, fell in love with this one. Um, just plays so great. Love the pickups on it and all that. SoCal, okay. All right, represent. I see some Texas. I see some Atlanta. I see some Southern California. Uh, yeah, awesome. Okay, we got a question. Oh, hey, Michael Westbrook. What's up, Tim? Man, we got West Coast, we got Atlanta, Greenville, South Carolina. You guys are amazing. Um, um, East Texas. All right, let's go. That's my spot. That's where I'm from. Where are you from in East Texas? Dallas. Let's go. That's where I was born. I was born in Dallas. We lived in Richardson area when I was little. Okay, you said let's see, back to the question. He said if you could go back to the year 2000 to 2006, what pedal and what setup are you using for that time? Um, what does it look like compared to now? That's cool. That's a fun question. Lindale working van. All right, man, love it. Um, that's amazing. Um, yeah, back to your question, man. Let's see, 2000 to 2006, I was touring with, um, we didn't have the boutique pedal options there were way less options, when I first started touring. So my full tone, like full drive pedal, I don't know if you're familiar with that pedal. It's the blue full tone, full drive too. I actually, we were at a youth camp, and Chris actually had hit that pedal on his on his pedal board, and he wasn't really playing electric much. It was just sitting in like a case backstage. We were at a youth camp in at Baylor, uh, Waco, Texas, and I had really been wanting to try a full drive too, because there were not that many boutique pedal companies. It was like we had Boss pedals, and that was kind of it. So I saw he had the full drive. I was like, oh my gosh, I've been so wanting to try one of the full drive pedals. And so I put Chris's full drive 2 on my pedal board. that summer. I guess that was probably 2001, and never took it off of my pedal board. So it was, so it stayed on my pedal board for, like 24 years, all because Chris never asked for it back. And at some point I was just like, listen, if you're not going to use this pedal, I got to have it. So yeah, that Full Drive 2 was my main, back to your question to those years, what pedals and what setup. I would have had a Vox AC30, this one back here. It's a that TB6, the English made Vox. And then I would have been using a Les Paul and a Telly. So early days of touring, we were doing a lot of flying, and you just couldn't bring that many guitars because you have to get them on the airplane. So I had one guitar case that had a that was fitted for a Les Paul. I'll show you that Les Paul. Hold on. This was my kind of go-to touring guitar for like many, many years. And I would just put this in my flight case and take it everywhere we went. It's a 70s Les Paul that I swapped out the pickups on. These pickups were from like a 90s Les Paul standard that I had. And it was like a honey burst Les Paul that I loved, but the neck got broken on it. And so we ended up swapping it out, and I toured with this for many years. This was like my kind of main guitar. It was all, I don't know if you can see it on the camera. I really wore it down over the years. It's all chipped up and banged up. And yeah, so this was my main Les Paul. It's a 76. I just didn't love the pickups in it, so I swapped them. So I was playing this Les Paul, and then I was playing this Telly. I'll show you. My first Telly was this 70s Telly from that I bought in Austin. This is my first Telly I ever bought. It's a 74. So in those days that you mentioned, the early 2000s, this would have been, my whole rig would have been like the full tone, Full Drive 2, the Boss DD5 pedal. I had a full tone. What did they make? It was a boost pedal called the Fat Boost. So I had the Full Drive, the Fat Boost, the DD5, and I was using this pedal a lot. Anyone know this pedal? Shout out, anyone? Did anyone use this pedal? I was obsessed with this pedal for the longest time. It was great because for the Les Paul, Sonic Stomp, you know what it is. Thanks, Nathaniel. Man, we got more people signing on here. Brazil, Romania, Dallas, Mexico. You guys are amazing. This is so cool. Siberia. Yeah, for the longest time I would use these, but they weren't stereo. So I had to use two of them. So if anytime I would run 2 amps, I had to like put 2 of these on my pedal board. And then out of my delay, I would split to 2 of these. Maybe it was the reverb pedal. I would split to 2 of them. But anyway, I would split and I would run 2 of these. So it would have been the RV5 reverb, Boss reverb. I think I got that somewhere in that era. Probably after listening to the Coldplay Live 2003 era recordings and live stuff. So I was listening to the so it's Full Drive. Oh, you know what else? Hold on. There's one more pedal that was really great from that era that I loved using. Hold on. See if I can find it. Hang in there. Coming back. This is fun for me. Trip down memory lane. Here we go. I was using these a lot. I had the hot cake pedal. and the box of rock. Yes, that pedal did take the blanket off the amp. Nathaniel, you are exactly right. Uh, hot cake, Martin, you know about this. So the box of rock I would use for like drive tones. Um, the boost was great for like just like an added boost with the full drive, but I would also use this side for kind of like a rat kind of thing. It was like a more dependable rat pedal. Um, I also use the rat a lot too. Let's get the whole rig. All right, guys, this is way too fun. This is way too fun. All right, let's see here. I would have been using this, one of these, one of these, with these, and the full drive. These were not always on the same pedal board, but some version of all this. And then we were on tour with Stephen Curtis Chapman in 04, 05. We did like a 75 city tour. It was such a long tour, but I made some really great friends, and they introduced me to this pedal. And this was my first ever delay pedal from that era that would have been able to put, where I would have been able to put exact BPMs in. So like for years, I would have to tap on this pedal for delay time for like a dotted eighth kind of thing or something. And then when this came out, I could go in and like get my exact BPMs for like, I think the songs at the time that we were playing, Chris had a song called Forever. And then also in that era, we were doing Not To Us, and then a song, Your Grace Is Enough. A few of those kind of faster songs that I really would have needed like an exact beats per minute kind of thing. And this was the first time I would have had that. So between like these pedals and the full drive, and like that box of rock, that was probably kind of like my whole rig. And then the Boss reverb pedal. Trying to think if there would have been anything else on that pedal board. I'll have to go back and look at some pictures. At some point, I added a second DD5 because I loved the option of having one set to like a reverse setting and one set to like quarter note or dotted eighth delay. But yeah, the Giga delay. This is just such a great pedal, so easy to use, and you can tell mine's been. I mean, I flew this thing all over the place, maybe even overseas. So it definitely got beat up a lot. Thanks for asking. That's fun to talk about. Maybe we should do a whole episode on the channel of like the distortion pedals. Like we've done a lot of like overdrive and boost stuff, but it'd be fun to do one with like the rat, the hot cake, the box of rock, like kind of like the other side of the gain pedal thing, because we all love our overdrives, but it'd be fun to talk through. I never run those very they're not very fuzzy anyway by the as far as how I use them. I would use that box of rock or that rat. I mean, pretty low. I mean, it was gainy, but it wasn't like ever pegged. And I would stack them up too. Like we had a song, Let God Arise, that was like a fast song. And I would always need to stack like the rat with something like the full drive, which would give me some like feedback, which was always fun. But yeah, that would be fun. Someone had a question. Do you run your wet effects in your effects loop, or do you run everything in front of your amps? Everything is always in front of the amp. I've never used effects loops for any of my rigs. I feel like, part of it is that we flew, so much of like my kind of philosophy or thinking with pedals, amps, and gear all came out of necessity. I'm sure a lot of you can relate to this. It's like whatever you had to have to get the job done, that became the thing you relied on. So it's like, if we flew in, back when we were early days of touring, we would fly somewhere. We might not get to the festival uh, stage until like right before we went on. Maybe, maybe we got there that morning, but you may not have access to your gear because like sometimes there'd be a stage and there'd be people using people using the same amps all day. And because you flew, you couldn't use your own amps. You have to like use the rental amps at the uh from the like the backline company. So like if we were at a festival and there was like a bunch of AC30s, well, people would all mark them up and put their settings and stuff, and then it would be my turn to go. And we might be playing at like 2 p.m. in the afternoon, and they'd be like, sometimes we didn't even have ears. We would have like a wedge down on the stage, and so it'd be like, "Hey, it's go time. You got to go," and we would have like 2 minutes for a sound check before Chris started his first song. And so like there was no sound check, and we had no monitor guy traveling with us in the early days. So all that to say, um, what I ended up doing was just keeping everything kind of as like reliable as I could be. It's like, here's my two overdrives or gain pedals, couple delays, and then like I had to know exactly what all that was going to do without even being able to hear myself that well. Because I might not even have my amp in the wedge. I might just have to hear my amp over here. And so when we had a really fast sound check, I would literally be like, if I can hear the kick drum coming through the wedge, and if I can hear Chris's vocal and maybe his acoustic, like I'm good. We got to go. And so I would literally have to play sometimes um, like that. So all that to say, effects, everything just went straight into the front of the amp because every night was different. You never knew what amp you were going to get. And then when we started touring and we could bring our own gear, then it was more reliable and you could have maybe done an effects loop. But I just got used to everything being in front of the amp. And I think a long time ago I read or heard that that's how the Edge ran his effects, was everything was just in front of the amp. And if it's good enough for the Edge, it's good enough for me. He's the man. We were all looking to him anyway as the uh as kind of the North Star for tone there and guitar parts. And um let's see here. Uh any new pedals you're stoked on? Thanks, Brady. New pedals. Yeah, some of the newest ones that I've played, I don't have a ton in the last like year that I've picked up, but man, I can't quit using that JHS Emperor pedal, that vibrato pedal. Hold on. You probably know it. But once you turn it on, everything sounds cool. It's hard to stop using it. So like if you had like a if you're playing like a part, where's my pick? If you're playing like a part, like especially this kind of thing, like a I mean, that's great. And I love it without it. But man, sometimes you just click on that little bit of vibrato from the Emperor. And it's such a great pedal. It just sounds good. It's just the best. Um, that's the one that I can't seem to turn off. I keep finding myself using that pedal. What else? Um, Man, it's not a new pedal, but I always run back to that Digitech Whammy. It's just something about that like I know for touring the Pog, the little micro Pog is gets the job done, but there's something about that old red box, the Digitech Whammy pedal, that like for tracking in the studio, it just puts your guitar in like a whole different EQ space that like the other pedals can't do. And yeah, for some reason that's just one that I always go to. Um I don't buy a lot of brand new pedals because I have so many that I've collected over the years. Um just because you do it as a profession for 25 years, and you collect pedals, even if you don't mean to. You buy one or two a year for several decades, and you end up with a bunch of pedals. Um, yeah. So I okay. Brady says I love the fourth and fifth setting on the whammy. Yeah, steel guitar. It has a cool effect. If you can figure out how to do it that way. Um, Newish pedals, like new-ish pedals that I've loved. The Kilt is great. Um, that Emperor is great. Um, I go back to that Digitech whammy a lot. Um, let's see that. Yeah, there's so many good ones. Um, yes, Martin. Am I using the Digitech whammy mainly for octave up? Yeah, I'll show you my setting that I use the most. I like the classic setting because I feel like all the glitchy stuff that's in the whammy is part of what I want out of it. Like I don't want it to be like I don't want it to like track beautifully. That's not why I use the whammy because I feel like the Pog maybe does a better version of that. Hold on. Yeah, I like this. I go with the classic setting. I use this a ton in the studio. This is just like a go-to uh, for studio stuff. Um, I've been going with the classic setting, and then I do that. I do the harmony setting because it gives you the note that you're playing, like the register that you're in, plus the octave up. That's the one I use the most. So you're getting like the note you're playing plus the octave up. But I would also maybe try it um, alone an octave up if I wanted it to really be kind of thinner and sit in like a new space in the mix. Um, Live, I just didn't use this much because it's so big and it took up some space on the real estate on the pedal board, and it requires funny power, and it just was not something that I night after night getting on and off of stages and on and off of airplanes. It just the micro pog ended up being so much easier. But for the studio, I love that classic setting. Um, Someone asked about the Duesenberg or Gretsch. Man, I love both. Um, Lately, I've been leaning on this Duesenberg a lot because it's just been rock solid in the studio, and it's just like uh, it's been so solid. They're different sounds. They're kind of they kind of live in their. I guess they're kind of neither of them are a Les Paul and neither of them are a Telly, so they're kind of cousins. Uh, but man, how do you decide? I don't know. I love my Gretsch, and I've recorded with my Gretsch a ton at home. Um, so much. I've used that guitar a ton for tracking. And I've used the Duesenberg both. I do love the way the Duesenberg whammy doesn't seem to knock the guitar out of tune as much. So that's been nice. The Gretsch I have is a country classic. It's like a 2013 Japanese country classic. So yeah. Hey, from Costa Rica, man, I got to catch up on the chat here. Tucson, Arizona. What's up? What's up, Nick? Brian, Hunter. I love that ambient pitch whammy vibe. Yeah, totally. Hunter, I'm right there with you. Costa Rica, that's so cool. Brian. More and more venues moving to silent stages, needing modelers. Yeah, well, so I don't know about which venues would require. It'd be more about your team, because I've played both. I've played in churches where we had like a smaller stage and really loud amps that just wasn't gonna. It really wasn't gonna work. And man, before we had things like the Aux box or you mentioned the Quad Cortex or the um, Helix, that kind of stuff. Before any of that, we just didn't have that option. So I would like turn my amp as quiet as I could where it still had some body, and we would turn them around. We would put blankets and guitar cases in front of the amps and just try to get them back as far as we could away from Chris's vocal. That was kind of the trick. It's like, how far away can we get the amps from the vocal? Which is another skill that I kind of had to like develop, was like, how do you get a tone that you like quietly? Because it can't be loud always. Now, once we got to play a place where Chris would play, we were lucky enough to get to play in some really big venues. So if you're in something like an arena, I feel silly even saying that, but like if you're in like a big room like that, um, you can crank the amps up and it's not as big of a deal because you've got so much noise coming from the PA that an amp backstage somewhere, you can crank them up and no one cares. Well, the video team that is stationed back there might be annoyed by it, but yeah. Um, and yeah, so anyway, I would say quieter stages seems to be the expectation these days. Like I see a lot of touring acts that use the Axe Effect stuff or Fractal. I've got a lot of friends that play in like country music and live in that world as guitar techs and stuff, and a lot of them have switched to Axe Effects and Fractal stuff, or Helix or any of those, Quad Cortex, like you mentioned. Tonex. I feel like a lot of my friends have loved the Tonex stuff. What are you? If you guys are following along and you use a modeler, I'm curious what you use. So why don't you let me know in the chat what modeler you're using? Because I've not really. That's not a world that I've gone fully into, and I'm excited to explore more. The only thing I have is this Kemper that I've used, and you know, I haven't used it live really. I've kind of just used it for recording. Um, and then sometimes when I play at church, I bring the Kemper because it's an easy way to play quietly. Oh, to answer your question about silent stages, I would guess most churches now you're probably expected to have a quiet stage. Let's see. So yes, I have seen that trend. I would say most places are expecting to not have loud amps on stage anymore. For better or worse, that's kind of the new world we live in. And there's so many great options now. It's just so much better than it used to be that you could honestly get such a great tone without the amp and without the hassle of like dialing in an amp and what does the room sound like and are you getting a weird thing from the mic and where do you place the mic, and it just kind of takes care of all that. Um, yeah. So the thing that I've used the most as far as like a direct signal, like when I had to be quiet, the last couple years that I was on the road, I would use this aux box. Well, there we are. So I could use my matchless amp into an aux box and my Vox AC30 into an aux box. And there's a Vox cab. It kind of simulates a Vox cab on there that was pretty good. And I would use that when I needed to. Let's see here. You guys are so awesome, by the way. This is so cool. Thanks for joining in and hanging out. Sorry we had a glitchy start. I had to restart this whole thing. Hi from Singapore. This is crazy. I can't believe someone is on here from across the world. This is such an amazing thing to me. I'm so honored that you would hang out. Do you use any specific guitar picks? Yes. I have a handful. When I'm recording, I'm grabbing lots of them that are laying around. I grab like, let's see, this Max Grip. I don't know if you can see this. It's like a Dunlop pedal. Listen to me. Dunlop Max Grip 1.0 pick. That's kind of the one I use the most. Like when I was touring, that'd be my main pick for electric. Number one, because it's just battle conditions on stage and you need something you can hold on to. So the grip helped me. You're at like a sweaty festival or a hot room or something, or even a cold, a cold like night where you're playing outdoors or something, and the grip helped. Also, being able to flip it and scratch the strings with the scratchy part, it's that trick that the Edge uses. That's a cool sound, and I use that a lot too. Um, these are cool. Little Dunlop, James Duke tipped me off to these. We were working on a project together, and he had these. He's like, "These are the best picks. You should use these." So, so I bought some of those. I always have those laying around, and I've got a few different. Um, that Dunlop one, I used the 73 on acoustics. So 1.0 for electrics, 73 for acoustics. That was kind of my live. And in the studio, man, I just use a ton of um, I use a ton of different picks in the studio just to try to get different sounds for acoustic, electric. Um, hello from Georgia. Hey, Ben. Okay, back to the questions here. This is awesome. Thanks for having questions. Let's see here. Let's go back up. Have you gotten to try out any of the amp emulators that are out there, like the Ruby or the Dream? I was on a session with a guy that had a Dream pedal. It was like a live kind of TV recording thing that we were doing. And it sounded awesome. The Dream sounded great. So I haven't bought one or used one, but it sounded great. We did one recording where I had to be completely quiet. I think we were recording a piano in the room, and it had microphones on the piano, and my amp was too loud, even though it was in the other room. So I actually ended up using a Strymon Iridium for that. It was a Christmas song that we'd recorded of Chris's, called Hosanna. And the little guitar part in there, I tracked with an Iridium that day. And honestly, I thought it sounded great. I was using like the AC30 setting, and for a direct option, I thought it sounded awesome. Mostly though, for direct, I've used the universal audio stuff, the aux. That's the thing I'm the most familiar with, because I still got to use the amps, and you're just replacing the speakers. That's the one that I've kind of used the most. But I really want to dive in more to that, because that's just like a whole world that's just like to explore, right? You've got the Helix and the Quad Cortex, and then Tonex, and all the, there's so many good ones now. I need to go buy a bunch of them or buy a couple of them and just explore what the options are and see what I like, because I think they'd be really fun to play with. And just for what I'm doing now with you guys online, and trying to kind of serve however I can to the worship guitar community. I would love to. I know a lot of worship guitarists at church need the direct option, so that's something that I'd like to dive into more, just so I could kind of understand that world better, and be able to speak into that for anyone that would want help with that or need help with that. What are some of your favorite guitar parts you've written? Oh man, Hunter coming in with the question that crushes me. That's like my favorite topic. I love talking about parts. Yeah, there's a few that over the years that I got to be a part of crafting or coming up with, that I just that we played night after night, that I always enjoyed. One was one of those was that Whom Shall I Fear, or the Angel Armies song that Chris has. We played it like every night for a decade. And I was going to tell you a funny story about that. That's one of those songs that I loved playing night after night. Our God. There's two stories there on both of those. I can tell both of those if you want on the. We'll talk about both parts. There's more parts, if I thought about it, maybe that I would later. I'll be like, oh yeah, I love that part. I didn't think about but just ones that I still love playing. Okay, some of you guys are responding. Yes, you're on Iridiums, Tonex, Stereo Tonex, UFX, or UA effects, the Dream 65. Yeah, awesome. Yeah, these are all great options. I'm sure they're amazing. And then let's see here. Um, let's see here. All right, cool. I don't even know if you can hear this. You asked about guitar parts. So one that was always fun every night was this. Let's see here. That was a guitar part that we were in the studio working on that song, and Chris wasn't. I don't think Chris was there that morning. Maybe he came in the afternoon, but me and our producer Ed Cash were just working through guitar parts for some of the songs on that album. And I actually started playing that when we got to the bridge. I was just like trying to find something that felt like exciting for the bridge, so that the nothing formed against me shall stand. I was like, and I started kind of playing around because we're on the 4. So I started playing that little like. I just started kind of playing around with that little bouncy rhythm over the bridge. And then I think Ed came up with the like bendy guitar part on the back half. So we kind of married our ideas into a part. And then later I left for the day. And then Chris, I think, came to sing vocals that night, and they were working on the song. And Ed was like, "Oh, hey, why don't you listen to this guitar part for the bridge that Daniel, me and Daniel worked on today?" He liked it. So he was like, "Hey, this is cool. Check this out." So when he pulled it up, Chris had the idea, because we didn't have an intro at that point for the song, or not one that was like a definitive intro. And Chris was like, "Well, why don't you put that, like, let's make that the intro. That's a cool, he likes that for the intro." So they tried it, and it turned out to be like what became the intro of the song. So that was always a fun one. Our God was another one that was an exciting but also like almost happy accident. We were in the studio making demos, writing songs, making demos, getting ready for a Passion conference. And there's always a batch of like 20 songs to go through that we would take these songs and kind of start crafting parts and trying to make the songs kind of come alive. And you want to honor the song. Some of these songs are just such great songs. You wanted to make sure that it got the right treatment. And so we were in the studio, and Nathan Knuckles, the producer for the Passion stuff at that time, he was like, "What if this is like," we were working on Our God, and he was like, "What if this song started with like 2 electric guitars, kind of doing like a mostly clean electric kind of thing, 4 on the floor kick, kind of like, okay, cool, let's try that." And so we literally just like counted in, like, let's just try something. So we were in the key of B. And so I was just like, well, if we're in B, I guess, there was no time to think about it. We had so many songs to kind of like try to get parts for, that we were just like moving quickly. And so when the song clicked in, let's see, we'll make sure my stuff's working. I just started on the B, like the note B, because that's what key we were in. And so I just started kind of like, and then I knew we were going like into the 4 chord. So I kind of like slid down to this like 4 chord, and then back up to like the B. So I was just floating around with that. And so I just started kind of going. And I was just kind of like first instinct. And I remember later being like, we would revisit the song, and I'd be like, "Hey, that intro, like, like that's pretty, like that was our first shot at it. Like, do you guys want to go back and revisit it and like work on it?" And everyone kept saying like, no, it's great. Let's leave it. And I was like, okay. And then I ended up playing it for like the next 15 years every night. But Yeah. So anyway, couple you mentioned a few guitar parts. Those are a few that stick out in my mind. Um, all right, back to the questions here. You guys are so cool, man. Thanks so much for joining in and hanging out. Um, let's see. Walrus, yes. Walrus Audio ACS1. Um, those are great. I do have one of those. I haven't used it much, but the times that I plugged it in, I was impressed. It's such a great pedal, and I know I got a lot of guys from our church um, that sound great. Use those. Um, let's see here. Back to the when you use the Kemper, do you use all the effects in front too, or delay and reverb after? I do. I treat it exactly like an amp, so I don't put anything on the back end. They have a built-in reverb. I might do that just like a touch, just to kind of keep it from feeling so sterile. But I just put all my delays and reverbs right into the front of the um in front of the Kemper with like a matchless patch, and that has worked for me. It's not it's not the same as the amps. It's its own thing, but it's worked whenever I needed to be quiet, like at church or something. Let's see. What's your go-to stereo amp pair? It's those two amps right there. So this amp, that's my matchless SC30. It has 112 in it, and I've toured with that since 2010. It's been on every time I could bring it. I used it for 15 years, and then that Vox back there is that Top Boost TB6. That's been with me since 2001. I bought it brand new out of the box in a Guitar Center in Dallas, Texas. And yeah, I've used these two amps as that's my rig. Those two amps, you know, couple of overdrives, delay, stereo, reverb, and those two amps, and I was pretty happy. And I kind of used that for like 15, 20 years. Um, uh, Greetings from Mexico, Daniel. Do you recommend using the booster before or after a drive? That's a good question. Um, you could play around with both. I've done it both ways. Um, one nice thing about putting the boost after your drive, if your drive is like something like a tube screamer or a like my full drive too is like that. It's that the way that the compression works, if you put a boost in front of it, it's probably going to make it just feel more saturated, which could be cool. And you might be able to do some tone shaping, but it won't necessarily like make it loud, because once it runs through the tube screamer style pedal, it seems like it doesn't have any more to give. So I've been running my booster, or like I use the Analog Man King of Tone as like a boost also, and I'll put it after the full drive. That way, if I want like more like actual volume out of, like I like the full drive, but I just want more volume plus a little more EQ or dirt, that seems to work best for me. Um, so it totally depends on I guess the style of overdrive, but try it both ways. But yeah, if you've got the boost after, it does give you a chance to lift it a little bit. Um, and I like, for amps, I love the option of being able to hit the amp hard. So like I'll use that King of Tone pedal. I'll hit it really hard. I'll use a lot of headroom on the pedal to crank it to kind of break up the amp, and that's been a fun way to use it. Um, let's see here. Any tricks for using the Kaiser capo and not having it pull everything sharp on the electric? Man, story of my life. I mean, that is like story of my life, is figuring that out. Um, so I have the Kaiser here, and it's because I'm in the studio and I have that chance to tune. Live, I would never throw a Kaiser on an electric without the chance to tune it after, because it is gonna pull everything sharp. Um, they're great for acoustics, and even that sometimes, you got to be careful. Um, I used these a bunch. This is like a Diodario, like a spring loaded capo. The funny thing is sometimes it depends on the guitar. Some of the neck radius, it doesn't necessarily like, so you got to play around with the tension to make sure it actually frets the note, or else you get that like clanky like sound where the capo isn't squeezing hard enough. So that's tough. There's that G7 capo that's like a silver one, and you just kind of manually close it. It's not shaped like this. It doesn't have like a, you just close it with your fingers on there, and that's a great one too. That's a great capo, but it doesn't really go on the headstock, and it's a little tricky to get from fret to fret. What I used to use was a rubber band. So I would take a rubber band on these, and I would literally tie it, and I would just retie it and retie it, like double it over and double it over until it relieves some of that tension. And I would just find the sweet spot on these capos to where like the rubber band would squeeze it like just that much, you know? And then when you put it on there, it doesn't squeeze the guitar so hard. So I would literally, I mean, for years before I had the option of using these, like before I knew this was a thing, for the longest time, Kaiser was the only thing that I even remembered having the option to use. So we would take those and we would put rubber bands around them for touring, and you could just slap them on the guitar, and it would, once you got the tension right, it was perfect. Yes, I agree, Jonathan. The G7 stuff is great. Hey, from Canada, what's up? Man, I used to love touring in Canada. You guys were awesome. We had some amazing nights. Some of our best nights of touring out there in, Vancouver and Toronto and all over. Yeah. Let's see here. Are you any acoustics you enjoy playing? Yeah, my main acoustics that I had experience with would have been Taylor guitars, like Taylor acoustics, and then also we used Collings acoustics on the road. The last maybe 10 years or so with Chris in the band, I was using a Taylor, it's a 12 fret. It had the slotted headstock, so it almost looked like a classical guitar. And those are so great. They just sounded great, played great. We put the LR bags pickups in them. I think they were the I think I had an Element pickup in mine. No onboard EQ stuff. I just didn't want to mess with any of that. And we didn't use any pedals. It was just like a Boss tuner. And then we had a great team with us on the road. We just let them dial everything in to make it sound good. So once you had a good solid, like, oh, I've got a good strong acoustic signal, I would just leave it alone and let our team out there that know better than me as far as EQ shaping, as far as like what it's going to sound like in the mix. We would let them kind of deal with all that. But yeah, the Taylor acoustics were great for live. I used them a ton. And then, we used to tour with Collings guitars as well. Those were fantastic guitars. We toured with those for many years as well. Hey, cheers all the way from Brazil. What's up? This is so cool. You guys are amazing. Let's see. I'm gonna go back up and make sure we haven't missed any. Oh, thanks for the nice words, Nathaniel. Appreciate that. Yeah, that's the tricky thing, is giving the song what it needs. Like that was always such a challenge, but it's something that was really a passion of mine, was trying to figure out like what do I bring to the song? How do I give the song what it needs without taking away from, it's like you want to like only play what's necessary. Yeah, it's such a tricky thing to find your spot. You like, there's the main vocal, right? So you get the main vocal, the main melody. That's the thing you're trying to serve the song, right? You want to play only the parts that maybe would be the right emotion, the right temperament for that. And it's so tricky. And I would always rely on my friends and in the band and the producers we were using, Chris. I would rely on all those guys, and I would recommend anyone do the same with your team. Like, I would ask them, like, "Hey, do you feel like this is working? Is that cool? Should I change that bridge?" Like we would just kind of bounce those ideas off of each other. And I would say one of the biggest lessons in that is just you know, try to have tough skin and try to be willing, be willing to open yourself up for some uh like healthy criticism. It's like you got to open yourself up for like, hey, if this isn't working, I can play something else. And then they're like, oh yeah, well actually, I don't know if that intro is the right thing. Like, okay, cool, we'll try something else. So I just had to always be really open-handed with that stuff. Don't be too precious about it. You throw your ideas out there, you shoot your shot, you try it, and then if it doesn't work, you try something else. Um, let's see here. I'm gonna go back up. There was another question I missed. Let's see here. Someone said they went to that Stephen Curtis Chapman tour in 2004. That's wild. Nick, that's crazy. Someone mentioned a song that we recorded. It was called Chris's Live from Church album, and there was a song on there called Goodness, Love, and Mercy that someone had mentioned the tones from. I think that was this guitar, just into those 2 amps. Yeah, that was a fun one to play. And then I think that the main part was like a little, I think it was probably that Memory Man, just on a quarter note delay for the choruses. Let's see. It was like a little something like that, but it had like a little quarter note delay. I think that's just the Memory Man with probably that RC booster and this guitar into those amps. Let's see here. Let's see. Oh, you're playing Goodness, Love, and Mercy for the first time this weekend. Oh, cool. That's fun, dude. I love that. I love that song. Yeah, that's that main guitar part. So it'd be like, let me see here. It might have been this guitar actually, now that I'm thinking about it. But I do remember that it had this, let's see. There was like the chorus was on a 4 chord and then back to the 1. But I remember there was like this little line that was like, it's like the G string. And then I would play the B, the E string was like the riff. Does that make sense? I would have to go back and reference the song to hear the whole thing, but that was that main hook, if I remember right. Maybe that'll help you. Hey, what's up, Lucas? Hugs from Brazil. You guys are so cool. Hey, Kyle, thanks for the kind words. You guys are awesome. Let's see, going back a little bit. Do you sing much when you play? If so, any tips for lead lines while singing? And that's hard. It depends on the riff. If it's a really challenging riff, like you would just have to practice it a ton. I did sing like just backing vocal stuff, some harmonies. Once we had a great singer that started touring with us, and once he kind of joined the band, I was able to just kind of mostly focus on guitar stuff, which made it easier. But that's a tricky thing. I think you've got guys that seem to be able to sing and play and not like the Keith Urban and the John Mayers of the world, and they don't seem like this bothers them at all at the same time. That's tricky. That's so hard to do. And I don't know that I ever figured it out other than just practicing like a ton. The only times I was able really to dial that in would have been just practicing. But usually choruses, I would only really be singing on like a chorus typically. And a lot of times for a chorus, I might choose to sing on one where I'm like hitting big chords, and that makes it easier. Or like just driving like a, something like that might be easier to sing to than like a really uh, busy or part that really takes a lot more focus. Um, Martin had asked about Angel Army's delays. I talked about that song a second ago, so I don't need to go too much into the song. But just as far as the delays, it's a dotted eighth. Let's see. It's just a dotted eighth delay, so like the part is pretty straight. It's just like this little hammer on. So most of what I'm playing is bone, bum, bum, it's like real straight, but the delay is doing the dance. The delay is kind of doing all the dancing. So you could kind of hear like a it would kind of go like a. So it's a dotted eighth delay, 74 beats per minute. I always use this Strymon timeline on tour. It's just it's the digital setting. And the delay, I would say it's at about 1 o'clock on the mix. And then I just make sure there's not a lot of mod in there because it would start to sound too chorusy. So I didn't really use much mod. It's like almost just like a real basic kind of digital delay because I wanted the character of the amps and the overdrive to kind of carry the. So I wanted all that drive to really be there and the part to speak well. So I just made sure there weren't a lot of repeats. That'd be the main thing. You don't want too many repeats on a part like that or it gets real messy. And then the other thing I'd be looking at is how much top end is in the in the delay. So something like the Strymon timeline, you get the option of rolling off some of the top end. And so that's a really key thing I'm listening for when I'm dialing in delays is like, I want it to be bright enough to speak, but I don't want it to be like pang, 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 like you don't want it so bright. So I'm constantly messing with that stuff. In the studio, I don't know if I would have been using that pedal for the actual part when it was recorded. It might have been that Giga delay. It would have been one of those two, the Boss Giga delay or that Strymon. But that's the basic idea there. Man, so much good feedback on here. Patrick, you're hilarious. Michael, Westbrook. So many great options now. He's talking about the digital modeling stuff. Feels like it comes down to user interface and preferences. Most of them can sound great. Michael's awesome. Michael toured with us for some years and plays with Crowder and has played with a ton of people. He's like the best guitar player and the coolest dude. Y'all be sure and go follow Michael Westbrook. He has an awesome YouTube channel with tons of valuable information on there. Let's see here. Have you ever tried to get some matchless profiles into your Kemper? I'd be the first to buy. Well, thank you. No, I haven't tried profiling any of my amps. I need to do that because first of all, I would enjoy having them for when I need to play digitally or play direct amps. I'll let you know. If we end up profiling some of these amps, it would be fun if, for those of you that are interested, of course, that'd be a fun way to kind of get into that world. Let's see here. You guys are so amazing. Thanks for all this. Greetings from Slovenia. This is so crazy. You guys are the best. Thank you. Thanks for tuning in. What has been your worst on-stage experience? Pedalboard dying. Can anyone relate? Can I get an amen? I see that hand in the back. Man, pedalboard, we were literally just talking about the song Angel Armies. There was a night on tour where I heard in my ears like, okay, here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. And I go to play the intro and there's just no sound coming out of my amps. Which of course is every guitar player's worst nightmare. It's like, here's the intro. And the intro of the song, I think, was like kick drum and me, and maybe like an organ pad. So man, I was really sweating it. And I remember just being like, oh, I can't believe this isn't working. What I used to do, for a quick tip, I would keep my pedals. I know we like having really tightly, like compact pedal boards with all the like pedals right up next to each other. But if you can find one entry place into your pedal board that eliminates like half of your pedals, that's a good tip for like if your pedal board isn't making noise. So what I did for a lot of years, anytime the pedal board like just wasn't working, I would take my input from my guitar, like usually it was right into the volume pedal. I would unplug from the volume pedal and I would go straight to the end and plug into my Strymon timeline delay, because once I got to that pedal, it was just that and the reverb and then the amp. So it eliminates like 8 pedals that could be the problem, because, you don't have time to diagnose the problem right in that moment. And so one quick fix for this, just to help you out, save you some embarrassment, is I would literally be like, oh, and I would like throw the cable right into that. So I at least had 2, and then you could play the song. The other option is I used to keep a second little pedal board with like a delay and a reverb on it, just next, or overdrive and delay next to the pedal board. That way I could play a song with like a whole different rig if I needed to, but it was small. What you're describing happened to me with Chris at church. JD, you're the best. He said he left his amp on standby and then couldn't play Your Grace Is Enough. That's so funny. Oh man, guilty. Been there. Hey, someone asked, this is a fun one. Someone asked about the song All My Fountains. Hold on. Right? All My Fountains. Hold on one second. I don't know if this guitar is in tune. So for that song, I was using this Collings. What is this? C10. Oh goodness, I'm gonna have to tune it. Yeah, we were playing this song, kind of a similar story to the other one. And we were playing. There was like an instrumental section in the middle of the song, and they were like, "We need something like, Daniel, play something so it sounds like a, almost like a solo kind of thing." But we were playing; it was like an acoustic song, and so I started playing this thing over the like minor chord progression. Let's see. Is this a? So the chords are like. It's like that was kind of the vibe. And so we needed some sort of like, it needed just energy. Like it just needed energy over that like explosive kind of minor thing. So anytime I'm in the key of E, one of my kind of like go-to tricks is to keep the E string ringing and just play like, or right over that. So you can play all these melodies. So I just started kind of droning the E string capoed here, or playing on the 5th fret. And that gives me that doubled sound. And then I found a little lick that seemed to work with the on the E string. that kind of thing. So it's like a. I think this back half of it, I haven't played this in so long. I think the back half of it was like a. Can you hear this? Or maybe I'll tip the mic down. Can you hear any of that? um, so yeah, anytime I was playing in the key of E, I think this is tuned down a half step. If you're playing along, it's not going to sound like E. Yeah, so that was a lot of that song was like that kind of thing. All right, there's that. Yeah, that was the tip for that one. I did not think anyone would be asking me about that song. That's so fun. I always loved playing that song. That had so much energy, and as an electric guitar player, it was fun to like have a song where like I wasn't thinking about my tone or delays or amps or pedals or anything. I just got to like just rip into the song on acoustic. It was such a fun. That was a fun season for those songs, and uh, so many good memories with those friends and great people. And it's just like a great time, and that guitar part kind of brings back a lot of that for me. Did you write the parts for Izzy Worthy? Those are some of my favorite parts in recent years. Man, that's so nice. Thank you so much. Yeah. There was that one. If I can do this without breaking any of my instruments. Real quick, Izzy Worthy. Yeah, there's that main kind of part. Let's see. There it is. So yeah, it was in E or E flat. I think on tour we played it in E flat. So I think I would play like. Let's see here. So that was like that main. That's that main. Maybe one of the parts you're thinking about. That's a little bit tricky, and I would have to practice this before we go out on tour because I kind of, yeah, got a part that was a little bit tricky, and I would just kind of like it. I always liked playing parts that you would kind of ramp into, like a like something about ramping up into it kind of made me feel like I could kind of get the right tones for it. I don't know if this is loud enough, but yeah, so it was like the main hook was like this little. That sounds pretty bright on over here. So here we go. If I turn off the delays, it's like. And then like a slide down. And then I slide back up. And if you add in the delay, you can get yourself into trouble doing all that sliding. But that's the part. It's like on tour, the sliding way down, I felt like was like maybe going to get me in trouble. So I started doing it like this. And then I would be like, does that make sense? And then on the little turnaround, when it says he is, there's another one of those. And I would just play it slightly different, but it'd be like, um, anyway, so there's that one. And then I think the verses were over this like one chord. So I would just play these chords, these notes here, D, G, and B. And then the minor. Anyway, there's some of those parts. If you'd like, we could do a better video with better audio where we do like a full breakdown of that song. I love that song, and I always really loved playing the parts for that every night. I think there's like maybe even another part on the end of the song. I'm gonna have to go back and reference that. But yeah, thanks for asking about that. What an amazing song. It seemed like every time we would lead that song, it would just like something would happen in the room. It just felt, the room felt different when you led a song like that. Such an amazing song, and such an honor to be, to be able to lead that or to play on that version of it. Well, man, thanks so much, guys. I think we're probably going to wrap up here. I know you guys got you've got lives, things to do. Thanks so much for, oh yeah, there's a few more questions. Sorry. Do you play on your church's worship team at all? Yes. Yeah, I do. From time to time, for many years touring, once we had kids, once me and my wife had kids, if we were touring on the weekends, and then we were actually, if there was a weekend where we weren't touring, a lot of touring happens on weekends. So if there was a time when we weren't touring, I loved being able to go to church with just my family. So I always try to keep that balance where we get to go as a family. So if I wasn't touring, we got to do that. But yeah, I hop in every once in a while. Let's see here. Someone says I'm from Brazil. Hey, Daniel, love your playing and tone. Keep at it, man. You guys are this is amazing. So amazing. Thank you. You guys are so cool. What kind of in-ears do I use? In-ear monitors. We use the JH audio ones for the longest time. I don't really have any recommendations or suggestions in that world. One of our monitor guys liked them, and we had molds made, and they made them for us, and I just never stopped using them. So that was the end of it for me. I didn't go shopping or try any others out. I think there's probably a lot of great options out there. We use the JH audio, Jerry Harvey, I think is what it stands for. Let's see here. Man, thanks for all the questions. Do you prefer semi-hollow or thin line over solid body guitars? Man, I don't know if I have for years I loved all the bolt-on neck guitars like a Tele or like my Fano, that kind of thing I relied on a lot. So that'd be my gut, would be to, have like a Tele Strat, that Fano is kind of like a Jazzmaster kind of style guitar. But lately, man, having that Duesenberg has been great. Obviously, the Gretsch stuff is great. So I don't know if I have a preference there. I like both for different reasons. Any tips for when you feel like you're in a creative plateau? Man, going to see a live concert would help. That always made me, or like if you can't get to a live concert, we used to watch like music documentaries on the bus on tour to kind of like get our juices going, get us feeling like excited about playing and creating music and playing live. So that was a good one. That was a good tip, is watching like a concert documentary or a concert on of one of your favorite bands, like, streamed or on YouTube or something. That always gets me, fired up. Listening to new music is always inspiring. Um, you know, listen to what like another guitar player is doing. Like if something comes out that I like think sounds cool, I'll try to research who played on it and go find out what they're doing. And that always, um, yeah. Daniel, do you have a stage coach for directions during spontaneous moments? Just curious how well you all play. Um, yeah, that was always kind of like instincts. We had our keys player for many years, Matt Gilder. Uh, he might direct like, "Hey, for this section, we're just going to hang out on the bridge chords," and we developed such a kind of like unspoken stage language that we could kind of look at each other and kind of play around each other. Um, for me, that was just kind of finding the right temperament, the right emotion for the moment. If it was like a prayer time, it was like maybe like a cleaner sound with like delay and reverb, or maybe it'd be like more washy if I needed it to sound like a pad, but just barely moving a little bit. Um, but if it was like big, loud, spontaneous moment, then man, I'm just like hanging on for dear life, playing the one. Maybe I'm just playing like the one of the song and just kind of like waiting to see where we were going. Um, but yeah, no one was ever yelling at me like a riff or anything. It was more like, what chord progression are we playing? That'd be the only thing that would be maybe in my ears. Um, man, you guys are so cool. Thanks for hanging in there and hanging out today. I hope I didn't miss any questions. If I did, hit me up on YouTube. Hey, real quick, for those of you that would be interested, um, I now have an email address. It's daniel@danielcarsonguitar.com. daniel@danielcarsonguitar.com. If you want to reach me, um, for like, we could talk through. If you just want to just send me a note saying, "Hey, I'm interested in what's coming," then I'll know where to send updates in the future as we are moving forward with this channel and with things to come. Also, I'll be opening up an option for like one-on-one private coaching, guitar lessons, coaching kind of thing. If you're interested in that, that's daniel@danielcarsonguitar.com. Um, yeah. So, yeah, you guys are awesome. Thanks for watching. I just saw a question I missed. What's another great delay pedal with the same characteristics of the Echo Park? Man, the Memory Man, probably. That deluxe Memory Man is the one I would use for that sound. Or get like the green DL4 pedal or the M9 and then just find that analog with mod sound would be kind of like their Memory Man. That'd be a good one. All right. You guys are awesome. I'm going to sign off. Thanks so much for hanging out. It was so fun to see like some familiar faces and meet some new people. If you haven't, subscribe to the Daniel Carson Guitar channel. I would love if you would. Hey, Larry in Colorado. Yeah, please, yeah, subscribe and comment. And if you like this sort of thing, share it with some a guitar player that that might want to grow in their playing. My dream and my goal for this is to take guitar players that are um, wanting to sound a certain way or wanting to get certain sounds or certain parts or certain things under their fingers. They want to figure out how to do some of this and help you, kind of make that transformation and grow in your journey, especially in the, worship and guitar space that I've kind of lived in for the last couple of decades. And hopefully the experience I have can be useful for some of you. So anyway, just wanted to say that real quick at the end. You guys are amazing. Thanks for tuning in. We'll do this another time again sometime. Thank you so much. Oh, Ethan, what's up? Thanks for saying hi. Hey, Jonathan, Brian, Sean, Larry, Christina. Hello. Okay. You guys are awesome. Thanks for tuning in. I'm going to sign off. We'll see y'all soon. Have a great weekend. Thanks for watching.